Hi, Phil Steele here with a review of the new Cactus V5 wireless flash trigger. Now, if you're interested in doing off-camera flash photography on a low budget, this is a trigger that you might be interested in. Now, this one's new as of 2011, and I've been part of the beta test group as they were developing this trigger, and I'm happy now that it's finally been released onto the market to be able to tell you about it. So this trigger is similar to the Photic Strato, which I covered in a previous video, and you might want to check that video out, with one important difference, which we'll talk about in a little while. As far as its basic design, the Cactus line up to this point has been, the Cactus V2 and V4 have been separate transmitter and receiver pairs. Now in the V5 they've gone to a transceiver, so every unit is identical and everyone can act as both a transmitter and a receiver. And that's a little more economical for you because if you need to have a spare on hand in case, a unit goes bad, with the old system you needed a spare transmitter and a spare receiver. Now as long as you've got one spare on hand, if one goes bad or you break one, then you're covered. So it's always better to have this kind of transceiver design. So the basic unit is really well built. They keep upping the ante and improving these things with each round. And it's got some cool improvements over the previous ones. For example, it's got a battery drawer that now sort of pops out with the touch of a finger, and every unit has 2 AAA batteries, which are nice and readily available. None of these funky CR2 batteries like some of the other kinds have. There's a little switch on the side that allows you to set it in either transmitter mode or receiver mode, or to power it off, which is handy to keep your batteries from going down. And on the other side of it, there's a little dial that allows you to set the channel, and it has 16 channels that you can choose from. And even cooler than that, it has what's called multi-channel triggering, which allows you to use up to 4 groups of flashes that are set into separate groups that you can use while you're setting up your shot, and you can test them independently. And then when you get ready to do the shot, you just have to put the channel selector on one, and it will fire all of your groups at the same time, which is really cool and very handy. So there's also, as you can see, a hot shoe on the top of the unit, which allows you, of course, to mount a flash on it if it's a receiver. But the cool thing about that is if it's a transmitter and you have this mounted on your camera, like this, it allows you to mount a flash on top of here. And that flash then can be used to provide on-axis fill light into your shot. Now here's the difference with the Photic Strato, though. The Strato, this little hot shoe on the top of a transmitting unit, passes TTL information through the lens metering information to this flash. And so the flash mounted here can be adjusting its own power using through the lens metering, even though the remote flashes are still being fired manually, as all these sync-only triggers do. Well, the Cactus V5 does not pass through the lens information to this hot shoe on top of a transmitter. It just uses it like all the remotes. It synchronizes it, tells it when to fire, but you have to set the power on it manually. It's not adjusting its own power using through the lens metering. So in that sense, I prefer the Strato a little bit over this Cactus V5, but the catch is the Strato costs more. So if you're looking to do, the lowest budget you can, then you're going to prefer the Cactus V5. Or if you just don't care about through the lens metering, some photographers don't ever use that, don't like to use that. They just want to set everything up totally manually. And if you're looking for that, then this thing's perfect for you and it costs less than buying a Strato. Now in testing these V5s, they have performed flawlessly. This is a 2.4 gigahertz frequency range trigger like the new ones that are coming out, much more reliable than the older frequency ranges. And as with some of the other newer triggers that work in this range, I found this Cactus V5 to be virtually perfect in all testing, basically no misfires. And it also has a really long range. I think it's rated to 100 meters, but some of the beta testers have tested it out over 200 meters and found it working successfully, even in some cases having a longer range than comparable pocket wizards, which they were testing against them, and those are the very expensive industry standard, which are known to have a long range. So anyway, it's got perfect performance in my testing and very long range, so it's a rock solid unit and really as good as anything that's on the market today. Now there is one little design quirk that some people have encountered in mounting this thing onto umbrella swivels, and that quirk is this. If you're going to screw the unit onto an umbrella swivel, because of the way it's shaped, some people find it interfering a little bit with the screws on the swivel like this. And there are two ways around this. This is not an insurmountable problem. One way around it is to simply use a cold shoe on your umbrella brackets. I always have a cold shoe on my umbrella brackets. I buy them with a cold shoe attached because I like having it on there. And when you've got a cold shoe on there, then you can just slide this thing in, mount it on that shoe, and tighten it down, and you're good to go. And that gets rid of that problem. I know some of the testers who were encountering this problem were dealing with it by loosening up this screw and sort of pulling this stud a little higher, and mounting the unit on it like that to get a little extra clearance. So that's the only quirk that I'm aware of that people ran into, it's sort of downside to it, but like I say, it's a small problem. You can work around it. Here's one last little feature that's kind of cool about the new design. They come with this little stand that just slides onto the foot of the unit if you want to prop it up, and you can have a flash on top of it, and you can just set it on any kind of flat surface anywhere you need to put a flash without even having to mount it on anything. So that's kind of handy. So the bottom line is this new Cactus V5 is a big improvement over the Cactus V4, and it's inexpensive. It costs around $60 US for a pair of them, which is all you need to get started. And it's incredibly reliable, and I think it's as good as anything you can find on the market today in this price range.